The man who warned us about Skynet in 1984 is now saying artificial intelligence is the only way to save Pandora. James Cameron just admitted something no one expected. Avatar 4 might never happen. Not because audiences don't care, not because the story is finished, but because these movies cost so much money that even $1 billion at the box office isn't enough anymore. And his solution? The same technology he spent decades warning us about. This is the Avatar nightmare nobody saw coming. The billion-dollar problem. Here's what's happening. Avatar. Fire and Ash is currently sitting at $1.38 billion at the global box office. That sounds massive, right? $1 billion is supposed to be a win, except it's not. Not for James Cameron, not for Disney, not for the future of this franchise. The first Avatar made $2.9 billion. The Way of Water pulled in $2.3 billion. Fire and Ash is tracking to land somewhere around $1.5 to $1.7 billion when all is said and done. That's a significant drop. And when your movies cost over $400 million just to produce, not including marketing, the math starts looking ugly. During the press tour for Fire and Ash in January 2026, Cameron finally said what everyone in Hollywood was thinking. The movie industry is depressed right now. Avatar 3 cost a lot of money. We have to do well in order to continue. We have to do well, and we need to figure out how to make Avatar movies more inexpensively in order to continue. That's the director of the highest-grossing film franchise in history, admitting that even he might not be able to keep going. And when asked about the budget directly, Cameron didn't sugarcoat it. He described it as 1 metric F times K ton of money, adding that we have to make 2 metric F times K tons of money to make a profit. The question he posed was brutal in its simplicity. Does it make enough money to justify doing it again? The Disney dilemma. Here's where it gets complicated. Cameron doesn't make Avatar movies one at a time. He shoots them back to back. Avatar 2 and 3 were filmed together as one massive production. The plan was always to do the same thing with Avatar 4 and 5. If we continue and we do 4, we also do 4 and 5 together, Cameron explained. So we made 2 and 3 together, one big story, and then 4 and 5 is another big story. That means Disney wouldn't be greenlighting one movie. They'd be committing to 2. At current budget levels, that's an $800 million investment before a single ticket gets sold. The 2025 box office failed to crack $9 billion globally for the second straight year. The theatrical industry isn't recovering the way studios hoped. Streaming fragmented the audience. Attention spans shortened. The days of guaranteed $2 billion returns are fading. So even though Fire and Ash crossed $1 billion in just 17 days, the question remains, is that enough? Cameron knows the answer might be no. The AI pivot. Now here's where things get ironic. In September 2024, James Cameron joined the board of directors at Stability AI, the man who created the Terminator, the man who literally invented Skynet, the man who spent 40 years warning humanity about the dangers of artificial intelligence. That's Stability AI, the company behind Stable Diffusion, the generative AI model that's been at the center of every debate about whether machines will replace human artists. The internet lost its mind. James Cameron is one of the most powerful filmmakers on Earth, one critic wrote. Him supporting AI is incredibly depressing for the future of cinema because studios actually do listen and follow him. But Cameron had his reasons, and those reasons tie directly back to Avatar's survival. Speaking on the Boz to the Future podcast, Cameron laid out his logic. In the old days, I would have founded a company to figure it out. I've learned maybe that's not the best way to do it. So I thought, all right, I'll join the board of a good competitive company that's got a good track record. His goal wasn't to make money. It was to understand the technology and figure out how to integrate it into visual effects workflows. If we want to continue to see the kinds of movies that I've always loved, and that I like to make big effects heavy, CG heavy films like Dune or Dune Part 2, we've got to figure out how to cut the cost of that in half. Cut the cost in half. That's the target. And Cameron believes AI is the only way to get there. But here's the part that matters. Cameron isn't talking about replacing workers. He's talking about speed. That's not about laying off half the staff at the effects company. That's about doubling their speed to completion on a given shot, so your cadence is faster and your throughput cycle is faster, and artists get to move on and do other cool things. A typical Avatar film takes 1,000 VFX artists. Cameron wants to keep all 1,000 people, but have them work for half the time. Then, they start the next project. Nobody loses a job. The output doubles. Whether you believe that's realistic is a different question. But that's his pitch. The irony hasn't been lost on anyone. The creator of Skynet is now betting that the machines might save his life's work. No AI in Avatar? Before anyone panics, Cameron has been very clear about one thing. There is no generative AI in Avatar, Fire, and Ash. None. Zero. He even made a point to address this publicly before the film's release. I'm not negative about generative AI. I just wanted to point out we don't use it on the Avatar films. We honor and celebrate actors. We don't replace actors. The distinction matters. Cameron uses performance capture, which records every movement, every breath, every gesture from real actors. Zoe Saldana, Sam Worthington, Kate Winslet, they're not being replaced by algorithms. They're performing everything you see on screen. Saldana herself has defended the process, calling performance capture the most empowering form of acting because it gives us the credit, the ability to own 100% of our performance on screen. Cameron's frustration is that people keep conflating what he does with AI-generated imagery. I think we got burned a little bit by the advent of generative AI, he admitted. People were conflating us with computer-made images. Our images are performed by actors. They're made by artists. Sure, we use computers. It's a tool. It's not the creative force. The creative force is the human imagination. So while Cameron explores AI for future cost reduction, he's drawing a hard line. Actors stay, human creativity stays. The machines assist, but they don't create. At least for now. The backup plans. What happens if Disney says no? Cameron has answers. Multiple answers, actually. Plan B is a book. There's so much culture and backstory and lateral detail in these characters that's been worked out, Cameron told Entertainment Weekly. I'd love to do something at that level of granular detail. He wants to novelize the remaining Avatar story, put everything on the page, the cultures, the history, the mythology he spent decades building. But he's also realistic about the market. There's no business model for it anymore. People aren't reading. Still, Cameron sees value in creating the canonical record of what it was all supposed to be. Even if nobody buys the books, at least the story would exist somewhere. Plan C is even more dramatic. If we don't get to make 4 and 5, for whatever reason, I'll hold a press conference and I'll tell you what we were going to do. How's that? A press conference. The director of the biggest movie franchise ever would just tell everyone how it ends. No cameras, no special effects, just James Cameron at a podium explaining the conclusion to a story that spanned 20 years. It sounds absurd, but it's also very on brand for a filmmaker who has never done anything the conventional way. What's already filmed? Here's a detail most people don't know. Part of Avatar 4 has already been shot. Cameron filmed the first act of the 4th movie years ago during the production of Fire and Ash. The reason? His young cast. The child actors playing Jake and Neytiri's kids would age out of their roles if he waited too long between productions. The story apparently includes a major time jump, so Cameron captured the early scenes while his performers were still the right age. Michelle Yeoh has also already filmed scenes for Avatar 4. The Oscar-winning actress was announced as part of the franchise back in 2019, originally cast as a human character named Dr. Karina Moog, but Cameron recently revealed that her role has changed. Michelle will be in 4 and 5. She will play a performance capture character. Her character name is Paktue Lat. She will be a Na'vi. Yeoh spent several weeks on set filming her scenes. She's called Cameron a walking genius and joked that she'd be the tea lady for James Cameron just to work with him. So the footage exists. The performances are captured. The first act is in the can. The question isn't whether they can make Avatar 4, it's whether they can afford to finish it. The $2 billion question. Let's talk numbers for a second. The original Avatar made $2.9 billion globally. Avatar, The Way of Water made $2.3 billion. That's a drop of $600 million between the first and second films. Fire and Ash is currently at $1.38 billion after about 6 weeks. Projections put its final total somewhere between $1.5 and $1.7 billion. That's potentially another $600 to $800 million decline from the second film. Now, $1.5 billion is still a staggering amount of money. Most franchises would kill for those numbers, but Avatar isn't most franchises. When your production budget exceeds $400 million, when your marketing spend adds another $150 to $200 million on top of that, when theaters take roughly half of every ticket sold, suddenly $1.5 billion doesn't look so comfortable. Cameron has been refreshingly honest about this reality. Every time we go out, we have to prove this crazy business case yet again. The world has changed. We all know the stats, where theatrical is. It's been a bad year. He's not making excuses. He's stating facts. The theatrical landscape in 2026 is fundamentally different from 2009 or even 2022. The rules changed. The economics changed. And Avatar has to change with them or end. The Terminator paradox. There's a strange poetry to all of this. In 1984, James Cameron created The Terminator, a movie about artificial intelligence becoming self-aware, deciding humanity was a threat, and launching nuclear Armageddon. The message was clear. Build machines smart enough to think for themselves, and eventually they'll think you're the problem. Cameron spent the next 4 decades reinforcing that warning. Terminator 2 showed us Judgment Day. He talked in interviews about AI being the equivalent of a nuclear arms race. He warned that automated warfare could escalate beyond human control. And now? Now he's sitting on the board of an AI company, arguing that generative technology might be the only way to save the movies he loves making. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling us if you think Avatar 4 will actually happen. And we'll see you in the next one.